Good the morning. Welcome thee to the Reloved Guitaries workshop, ye oldie. It's Australia Day today, so hello Australia. I'm not kidding myself that I've got people watching in Australia, but hello Australia, because you never know, my eldest son and his girlfriend may be occasionally watching this channel to see his old dad. Anyway, they just went out there for about a year's adventure on Saturday, so that's kind of kept me busy over the last weekend, hence not doing much in the way of guitars, and only got round to uploading a few videos on yesterday, Monday, oh god, what day was it? Monday, yesterday, and so got down to my Regis Business Lounge in Plymouth and was able to upload 4 or 5 videos in quick succession, and that's pretty good. It's a nice facility to have, because right now our home broadband doesn't do the job, but on the last couple of visits to the Regis Business Lounge, it seemed like coincidentally when I was there the whole system blew up each time I was there, so I wondered if it was my uploading that was doing it, being paranoid. Anyway, it went smoothly yesterday, which I'm very pleased about, so I shall continue to go there until such times as I have a decent broadband upload capability. I don't mind leaving stuff running overnight, but it's no good if it just kills everything else on the network, which it's doing with the Sky router. Anyway, that aside, yeah, welcome back, and this is a video where I'm going to be doing a very mild tweaking setup to this Epiphone Standard Les Paul guitar, and this is the first one of this kind that I've ever had in my hands, so it's really nice to see and to feel and to work with. This belongs to Gary, the singer in the band that I'm in, and well, I should say new band, because I was playing with some guys down in Cornwall last year, and now I'm trying out with some guys in Tavistock, which is much closer to home. So it's probably a good thing for the time being. Anyway, this belongs to Gary, and Gary's the singer. I don't think he plays it that often, but once it's set up to make it as easy to play as possible. So my first impressions of this are, well, all round pretty guitar. It's got a lovely flame top effect. I don't know whether it's a maple top, probably is. It's got a nice all-round finish. Cream binding is a sort of, it's tinted with the cherry, so it's not just cream, it's kind of cherry cream, and you can see that it's quite a difference actually between the cream of the binding and the cream of the sort of neutral cream of the pickup surrounds. So that's the colour you usually find on the binding of these kinds of Les Pauls, but on this it's tinged with the overall guitar colour, which I think is an attractive decision. So it's all, you can imagine it's just a kind of drop of cherry lacquer in the binding mix, whatever they use. Anyway, it looks pretty. It's got Grover tuners. They're kind of, I wouldn't say cheap versions, but they're the sort of mass-produced, I mean they're all mass-produced. These are the budgeter end of the Grover thing, and I honestly don't know what the different variables or different models are, but you can often see that the more expensive Grovers don't have any seam down the middle of these kidney-shaped buttons. They seem to be seamless. These have seams, but you know, for us I can see so far they work really well. The Seymour Duncans he's got installed in here are very nice. They sound pretty good. That's quite clean for a neck pickup. Bridge, both. I'm dialing the right. You bright-eyed, eagle-eyed people may have noticed I was dialing the wrong tone button there. Yeah, it's nice, full range of tone and usable volume. So everything's working nicely. A bit dusty, a bit mucky. As far as I've had a look so far, then the only things I can see that will probably improve on are the first fret action. It's a little bit high on the bass strings, which should lead to just making it a little harder to hold down, but we can just make a tiny improvement on that. And also I want to check the frets for level, and also there's a couple of these strap pins are a bit loose, so I might want to just make sure they stay in properly, and give it all a good clean up. So I'm just going to see whether or not it needs fret leveling. There's some wear, a little bit of wear down here, so I probably will give it the mildest of fret levels anyway, because that's what I do, and then it gives me an options to have whatever action I want. At the moment it's looking pretty nice at this end, and the neck, from what I've seen of it previously, the neck is very, very straight. So we've got, I can't see this, we've got, actually this is, that's about 1.8 millimeters, so it's a tiny bit higher than I'd normally have it there, and 1.6 on the low, the high E. So it's not too bad at all. I mean, it's pretty close, but there's almost no relief in the neck at all. There's a tiny bit on the bass side, but none. It's practically flat down this treble side. So that's not a problem exactly, but it shows that it's quite common that the two different sides of the guitar neck, or the treble and the bass side, will have slightly different relief characteristics. And if you try and imagine how that looks as a single flat strip of rosewood, it's kind of straight along one edge and somehow kind of bowed, curved, or you might even call it flared on the other edge. It's sort of baggy. What does that mean about the material? It means it's, what does it mean? If it was a piece of soft material, it's just drooping on the one side, and you'd probably want to pull it tight, and then you'd kind of recut it, if you see what I mean, if you imagined it as a flexible material. Anyway, it's slightly baggy on this side and flat on this side. So we might put a tiny bit of relief in this, you get a bit more on this side, but if I'm going to fret level, then I'll tune the fret leveling tool as I move across the radius, so that the curve in the tool will be slight here and more here, and it just means we respect the natural radius, not only the radius of the neck, but we're respecting the relief as it changes, because they're never, very rarely is it exactly the same. And that's why if you have a radius block, and some people, it's probably worth pointing this out, because some people come on YouTube and say, well, I use a radius block because it's much more accurate. Well, it's true, but if you use a radius block, this has got a fixed and unyielding radius, and what will happen is, for sure, no matter what your neck is doing, providing the neck's roughly straight, you will, if you use a radius block like this as a leveling tool, you're going to impose the fixed radius, the perfect fixed radius, onto this neck. And the truth is, this neck doesn't have a perfect radius anyway. Like I said, the relief is, not only is the relief slightly flatter on the treble side than it is on the bass side, but also you may find that because of the way that the frets are put in, the radius will never be exactly what's dictated on your block. So it's all very well to use this, and sometimes I'll use this when I've just put some frets in, because you need to be cautious. This will take off more material probably than you'd ideally like, particularly if the actual radius is a fraction off the notional radius, or the precise radius that this thing's made with. So it's all very well that you can definitely get a nice uniform radius, but if you're, like I say, if your actual radius isn't precisely that, you will suddenly find yourself taking off loads off the edges. For example, if your frets aren't sitting, maybe they're glued in, but they're not quite as tightly down as they should be, but they're glued in perfectly firmly, and they're all the same. Actually, what it means is your radius is maybe more like 10 or 11, not 9.5. Now, if you go at this with a 9.5 radius, because your fingerboard's 9.5, you're going to take off a hell of a lot of material down the edge of the frets. It's perfectly doable. You will force that overall thing into a 9.5 radius, but you may have taken off more than you want on the edges. And you'll notice that because when you come to profile the frets, you'll have to work a hell of a lot harder on the edges. And it also means that there'll be less material to do it again in future. So whilst there are times when this is a really good way of leveling frets, and like I say, particularly when, let's say I've just put some really tall new ones in, and I can afford to kind of force a 9.5 precise radius on a guitar, not this one because it'll be 12, but when I'm willing to force a radius on a set of frets that I've just done, that can be quite a good approach, and then I can fine tune it later on with the tunable tool. But when you've got a guitar that's part of the way through its fret life, the last thing I'd really want to do is impose this radius on this guitar, just because of the likelihood that it will end up costing me more metal off the frets than I really want to get that precision. What I can do is, if these frets are effectively, let's say 10 instead of 9.5, I know it's a 12, but let's call it 10 instead of 9.5, but the fingerboard is nominally 9.5, you might find that if all the frets have been put in and they come to approximately 10, then it's better to work with that and not impose a radius on it when you're fret leveling. So using a thinner fret leveling tool allows you to kind of move across the radius and respect the fact that it's a 10, not a 9.5. This just imposes 9.5 on whatever you've got. So I hope you can get a sense of why I would use one and not the other. But there are some times when I go ahead and use that. Now also, if I get a guitar that I'm confident has exactly a 9.5 radius, or whatever shown on the block, I can do a quick pass down there with the neck flat, and I can see straight away if it's touching all parts of the radius, i.e. the edges and the middle, then I'm confident that the frets are pretty accurate to that radius, and I can carry on using this tool. My experience has shown me that more often than not, I'll go down there. This might be I'm using the wrong. Let's say this is 12. Everyone knows this is 12, right? Let's say this says 12. And my experience has shown me that quite often I will put this down the 12 and it will actually take off only on the edges. Now, at that point, I know that it's not truly 12 once built. The fingerboard might be 12, but actually once built, the frets themselves are slightly bigger than 12 radius. Now, my choice at that point is stop, put this aside, and use the thinner tool, which will kind of follow the radius naturally, and leave it at 12.5 or whatever it really is. Or I can decide that I can afford to lose that little edge uncertainty, if you like, and I can force this radius back onto that set of frets, and I can make them truly 12 again. But like I say, that's a judgment call, because if I've not got enough metal, I don't want to do that. Anyway, that little diversion aside, what have we got here? We've got a dusty old thing. Right now plays nicely, a bit out of tune, but and it plays all the notes nicely. A couple of slightly zizzy notes in there, but I would predict that the frets on this thing are relatively pretty level, or reasonably level, and I can use my dual function fret rocker. And now this is, I'm also set this up with some, I cheat a bit, I use this as a nut slot cutting file. It's just right for a Telecaster or Stratocaster nut slot. Nice and sharp, gives me a really nice sharp edge, but I'm cheating because it's really a fret rocker. But I can use the fret rock a bit just to have a feel. So not the best position, but just putting it across sets of 3 frets here. Just a quick check, and they're level, pretty much level. So this is I can't. There's a bit of rocking up here, but just as a quick sort of guess there, and the way it plays, I think this has either been leveled in the past by a previous owner, or this is a bit I don't know about. It may have come out of the factory in such a good condition, and unless I buy one new and have a check, then I won't know the answer to that. I will know it if Gary bought this new, but he didn't, he bought it second hand. But it feels like the frets are in pretty good condition, hence we've got a nice low action to start with. Now the only thing I notice about the frets is they are, if anything, just a little squared off on the top, so that may be consistent with them having been worked on before, but they're generally speaking in pretty pleasing condition. So I would be looking to do the mildest levelling on this, really, if anything, just to take away the grooves, because I don't, looking at the way this is playing, it needs only the tiniest amount of levelling to come back that 1/3 of a millimetre maximum that I might want to take the action down. But other than that, it's just a matter of levelling, probably because it cleans up the grooves, as to lower the frets to get a better action. So it's pretty close as it is. We may find it played slightly different, or it may be a little less cooperative once we take the action down at the first fret slightly, certainly on this E string, but it's not too bad. But it will result in it, fretting this, it will go slightly sharp, and that's one of the downsides of having a high action on the first fret. Okay, so enough talk about it. Everything's working as it should. There's no immediate apparent problems with the electrics. Put this out of the way, hang this up, and it's a matter of getting stuck in. It's got what feels to me like tens of the strings that Gary's got on here. I'll check with the old micro gauge thing, but it does feel like tens. And this is, as I say, it's a bit dirty all round, so it will benefit from a nice clean-up. But otherwise, it's in pretty playable condition, which is nice to see. Now, one of the things that was interesting to me, and I suppose a few others, is the comparison between this and, I'll get it in inches, mate. That's 10s or 11s. I think it's probably more like 10s, but yeah, 10s. Or at least on that top one it is. Okay, so yeah, a few people are interested in the comparison between this and a vintage, because that tends to be an immediate sort of thought. When you have maybe you've got a couple of £100 to spend and you want a quality Les Paul copy, what do you buy? Now in my book there are these 3 or so pretty viable alternatives. There's this, the Epiphone Les Paul, which should be pretty good all-round quality, given that it's a Gibson backed product, and judging by this, it isn't bad at all. But it's not astonishing. It's everything you'd expect it to be, and in pretty good order. I can't judge the pickups because these are obviously upgraded to Seymour Duncan's. But yeah, so your first choice might be Epiphone, set neck Epiphone Les Paul Standard. Everything you'd expect. There's a crack on the, quite a bit of cracking on the jack plate there. There's also a dent, or quite a big ding there, that's been painted in with some red in the past to cover it up. So choice number 1 was this. Another one you might look at would be the vintage V100s, and there are some pretty looking ones of those too. And then one personal choice that I have is the Rally GL300, which is little known, but I prefer it to both this and the vintage personally, for the reason that I think its stock pickups are superb, and also because it comes with the 2 or 3 that I bought come with superb actions, which I have to assume are out of the factory, because it can't be that I got lucky with 3 completely separate owners who've all precision leveled their frets. Sorry, that's a bike falling over. Just leave it. I'll just leave it. Anyway, sorry, the wind is pretty strong out there. Yeah, so it's for me, it's one of those 3. If I'm honest, I started out liking a lot of vintage products, and I thought the V100 was pretty great. And having done maybe 7 or 8 of them, I'm not so sure about the vintage Les Paul copies. I think the vintage, for me, I like the vintage SGs. They're great. I've found a number of vintage Les Paul copies have have necks that I'm not comfortable with, and it's really hard. I'm not a kind of expert in this by any means. I just know what I've had my hands on, and there's something about the neck on the V100s that I found is, first of all, it's kind of ski slope plateau, so it's kind of inflexible from there onwards. Now I know that's probably a characteristic of all Les Pauls because of the way they're thickened up here, the way they're glued in solid to a block of mahogany, right? But on the Les Paul, the vintage V100s, that seemed quite pronounced. Also, it seemed to have struggled a bit with the kind of top frets, and particularly the intonation has always seemed slightly off on the vintage V100s. And I have to say, the number of times I've had to take the bridge off and turn these last 3 around to get the little extra bit of intonation room, either forwards or backwards, whichever it is, out of it has been numerous actually, and enough that I kind of remember it. So I would probably go, at the moment in my mind, Rally GL 300 for me, followed by this thing because I quite like it so far, followed by Vintage V100, and then below that I suppose you could have all your Westfields and your, I don't know, Gear for Musics or any bunch of other stuff that you know you'll see on sale on eBay. Within that range as well, Gould makes some quite nice ones. They're, to my liking, they're not quite as iconic as these. They're slightly their own shape a little bit, but I've done a couple of those and they've been very good Les Paul copies. I mean, they play great and the quality made. So, and then underneath again, I suppose you've got the Encore stuff, which, you know, given the right pickups, can be really nice guitars. But, and in a sense, there's not that much difference when you come down to an Encore. You know, the hardware is very, very similar. You won't get as good tuners, okay? So you'd need to change the tuners, change the pickups. But apart from that, you know, it's still a fairly nice big lump of whatever material they make it out of. Don't know what the material on this is. It's nice and weighty, but it's not the heaviest thing I've ever felt. Anyway, enough said. So what have we got to do with this? Well, let's have a look through. Like I say, the action is kind of quite nice. He wants it. Gary said he wants it easier, slightly easier to play than it currently is. So, to me, that means we'll go about this in the way that I usually do, which is to set the action that he would like. We'll get it kind of light as possible, and we'll take it down just a tiny fraction. I'm going to need to move that bike because I'm expecting a delivery, and the delivery man won't be able to get here if there's a bike in his way. But yeah, so one of the things I want to do is I want to take this action in a fraction, action a fraction. Yeah, can't see it from this side, but this was a bit dark. But okay, that's a tiny bit on that side, and just a minuscule bit on this side, hardly any. Okay, that's nice. Then our next part, so we do first of all the action down there, then we'll do the first fret action, and then, first this, then the neck relief, then the first fret action. And once we've got those three kind of worked out the way we want them, then it's a case of doing the fret leveling according to that. What I'm interested to know is, having tweaked the action slightly, okay, so there's a tiny bit of buzz there at the low strings, high up here, and that's probably going to be just helped out by a tiny bit of the fret leveling. I'm going to get my tools for checking or adjusting the first fret action out as well. I'm just also looking, I'm going to just try to get this so it's roughly neutral on its balance point. I'm going to check what the neck relief looks like by capoing the guitar. So we've got a little bit of neck relief down here, and that's probably about right on the bass string. But if I'm, oh yeah, we've got some too on the, that's good. A little bit less on the thingy top E, but I'll take the truss rod cover off, and just in case we do need to make an adjustment. Let's see, let's have a look down this. Okay, I can see, yeah. Okay, it's not as uneven as I thought it was actually by eye, so it's good to just check it and measure it. A lot of people, there are lots of different manufacturers' specs for different things, and people say, what do you set it to? And I tend to be variable on this. I go, first of all, it needs some, because you need the strings to be able to spin a little bit wider in the middle of their travel, and it can't do that with a totally flat neck. So you think of a skipping rope, you know, it makes a bigger, describes a bigger circle in the middle where it's slackest, or or it's tension. Tension's probably the same, isn't it? Anyway, yeah, in the middle, you know, it makes a bigger, describes a bigger movement, and so the same applies to these strings, so they need to spin more. The movement is less at these anchor points. I'm going to need to move that. So it needs a bit of relief. If you have too much, what you find is when you fret a note down here, too much of a curve, and just put it crudely, these frets are likely to come up and hit the string because of the curve. Too little of a curve, too flat, and you press a string down here and these will still be touching the frets here. Okay, so it's about having enough, having a bit of a relief in it, but not so much that you kind of obstruct the strings with frets further down the line. And of course the only place, it changes for different guitars. On a bolt-on Strat, my experience is most of the neck is flexible and you get a kind of smooth curve over almost all of the neck. With Les Paul copies, or Les Pauls, the amount of thickening starting on the 12th fret through to the end is extreme. By the time you're on the 14th fret, you are on about 2 inches of thick maple, or mahogany, sorry, usually. And then it's also glued slam bang into the side of this great lump of mahogany, or whatever it is. So the flexibility in this part is very, very limited. But we'll see how it works out. Now we've got here what feels like plastic nut. I could be wrong. I'd hope it was bone, but actually maybe it is. Yeah, actually I think it's bone. It's quite hard. I hate plastic personally. Okay, so what am I looking for? I'm going to leave the neck relief where it is, but I will take off the thingy, truss rod cover, in case I need to make an adjustment. And sometimes, now the reason I tend to say, for me in my experience, that it's not fixed, the truss rod adjustment, you can start off with, let's say I might aim for about 0.2 of a millimetre at the 8th fret, sort of midpoint between the two anchor points, the capo and the held down point here. I might aim for about 0.2 to 0.3, and if you start with that, you can find that once you've done your setup and you're still getting a little bit of buzz somewhere, you can find that a tiny adjustment on the truss rod one way or another will give you back the action that you really want. So, you know, it can be as tiny as that. Same way you might do fret leveling and get everything playing, except there may be the tiniest little buzz up here, and a 5-degree turn on the action down at the saddle will just raise it enough to clear that, and you'll get a nice clean play. So the movements of these parts, these anchor points, the amounts you need to move things are microscopic really. Okay, so let's have a look at my sort of at rest measurement. Now these measurements, as anyone with a attentive eye will know, are they're done with I'm doing them with the guitar laid flat. The neck mostly supported at its kind of balance point, or its fulcrum pivot, or whatever you call it. So there is a little bit of gravity pulling down, but not a huge amount, and I'm also not bending it the other way. The point being is, whatever I work on here, I know that in the playing position it'll slightly increase. This will decrease slightly if there's any downward movement, and I'm not going for an absolutes here. I'm going for what am I going for? I'm going for playability, because what I'll do is I'll make the adjustment lying down, then I'll play it, then I'll make another adjustment, and then I'll do fret leveling in this position, and then I'll check for the notes to play, and if they don't play cleanly, I'll do a tiny little bit more fret leveling in this position. So I'm basing it off the playability in this position. That's the important thing. I'm not working to an absolute in this position. I'm working to a convenience in terms of the way it's laid out. And people will say, well, that's inaccurate. Well, it's only inaccurate if I don't test it in practice. Okay, if I just did it lying down and called it quits, that would be potentially inaccurate because of the effect of gravity. But if you're keeping common sense about you, you know that you play the guitar standing up, and the gravity effects on the neck are different. So you're looking to assess it in this position. It doesn't really matter whether it's 0.3 over the first fret or 0.35. The numbers don't matter. What matters is it's low enough to play easily and play correctly, and that's what you're aiming for, the playability of it. not some set of numbers in a book. That's my take. So just as it happens, lying down in this position, the first fret action on the low E at the moment is over 0.7, somewhere around 0.75, which is, according to me, is about 0.4 higher than I want. So it's nearly half a millimetre higher than I would personally like it. So, but I'm not going to go ultra low. I'm going to stick at about 0.4 because I know that what Gary wants is it to play easier than it currently plays, but not to kind of completely change the world. So I will aim for a slightly lower, but not a massively lower thing. So I'm choosing 0.4, and what I'm going to do first of all is just to take off the bottom two strings and work out from the D outwards. Just get my things in order, my ducks in order. Note to self, go and move the fallen bicycle. So he's working with, we're going to put 10s on this, so this is a 10 set as it happens, but as I've said on a few videos, you don't have to just work with a 10 set. I mean, you don't have to have an exact set for every complete set of expensive things for every gauge you might ever use. You can make them work for you. So whereas I know this is a 46 string, I probably want to waggle it and make it slightly wider, because the last thing I want is a string that's constricting, and if you do it on the 46, inevitably, if it's exactly the same, it will stick. You need it just slightly bigger, so it ends up always being a bit of a waggling going on in my world. So sometimes a way of doing that is to go one over. So I might say, instead of starting with a 26 here, I might go for the 0.036 for this D, and if I just slack it off enough to move it, and I try in that slot, it's pretty much almost there. If I go for the 26, it fits in with a bit of room to spare. So it really practically needs to be greater than the gauge or the string they've given you in this set, which is kind of annoying. So let's stick with the gauge they've given, and we'll do a bit of a waggle too. So what I want to do first of all is on this D is I just want to see what it is. So this, I've gone for 0.4. That's quite high by my standards, but let's stick with it. And I say this is actually coming in at 0.4 on that D, so I'm not going to do anything to that D. What I will do is I'll tune it, and then I'll put in the A, and I will just check what the A registers as a. So that's playing cleanly, and there's a little gap there, but it's not a huge amount, but it's more than on the D. So I have a tiny bit of room to adjust this. So I'll just change over my thingy. At 0.4, as I said, is not a massively low setting. I would often go as low as 0.2 on some guitars, just because it feels lightning low. Now that one is already down at I would say that's 0.3. Let me just double check this. Yeah, actually I'm going to do that. I'm going to go with 0.3 because 0.4 is too high in my books. Okay, so it also means I'm just going to double check the D again. There's a little bit of room on that. Yeah, as I say, 0.4 is he's quite conservative. I don't know if that's the right word. Anyway, the whole point about this is doing it a little bit at a time, very small amount, and pitching slightly backwards because we want the string to rise up to the front of the nut. That's so close. I'm going to stop there on that one and tune it. It is already. Then I'm going to move to the A again and go for the 0.3 this time. Nearly there, I think, anyway. Almost there. In fact, I'll stop on that one because I quite like it. So close. And then we'll go straight to the E on this one. And again, we're just going to double check how far off this is. Okay, now I can see this is it is quite considerably off. This is probably about 0.5 millimetre now too tall, too high off the fret. So if we work on this one, it might take a little longer, but again, same principle. Slight backward tilt and then take our time to get it. We've got to make sure that it fits in and that it's not catching anywhere as well. Loads of room. These strings are currently now only good for this setup process, and once we've done that, all this pulling and pushing of the strings, it's stressing them a little bit, but that's fine because we're going to chuck them away. Oops, I forgot my things on. Sorry, I'm going to make this go away. Yeah, 1322. Yo! Sorry, I've got a collapsed bike in the way. Sorry about that. Thank you. Thank you for coming round. Goodness, amazing. Rainy. Thanks very much. Cheers. Cheers now. Well, solved the problem. We have now a delivery and we don't get disturbed. Okay. Yeah. Let's carry on getting this down. Nearly there. In fact, just about on. I'm happy with that. I'll stop there on that one. Okay, so that's the bottom 3 done, and then I'm going to slacken off the top 3 slightly and push them out of the way. So once we've got the 3 key variables done, the neck relief, we want the bridge action set and the nut, or the first fret action set, and we're able to do any fret leveling. And like I said, on this guitar I'm going to do a very, very light fret leveling, not because it immediately feels like it needs it to play. There we go. We're just on the mark there. Not because it feels like it needs it to play, but because it will just tidy up a couple of the buzzy notes up here, but it will also get rid of the grooves that you've got in the notes, in the frets down here. And that kind of goes some way towards tidying up, making it feel fresher and newer. Make sure I got the right one. There's quite a big gap there. I try to keep the string as close to pitch as possible because there you go, just about on. Action too high. Try to keep it at pitch because it's almost too easy to just sometimes it's too easy for the string to stick in the slot and deceive you. So you think it's sitting at the bottom and you carry on cutting, and it actually then, as soon as you put it under real full tension, it drops down that little bit further and you realise you've overcut it. It's got a tiny bit more to go. So it's very, very delicate at this stage, and you just keep almost touching it with a feather. That's good. Now I'm going to use the same one on the next one. Now the reason I'm using the same one again is that I find that the thinnest one, for some reason, can be really snatchy and you can very easily end up with if it's exactly the same as the gauge of the string, I find it's really easy to have it binding, and I don't want that at all. So again, all of this stresses, there you go, just over the edge. Yeah, all of this stresses the strings a tiny bit, but that's fine because we will bin them. So what I've got now is a 0.3 action all the way across here. So straight away, Gary's going to notice that this down this end suddenly feels a bit easier to fret the strings. I'm just going to check this E again because I might have been a little cautious on that. But yeah, it'll feel easier straight away to fret the strings at this end. Also, that's close, not too bad actually. I'm going to leave it. So it feels a little bit easier to play, just fractionally. And also, that gap will slightly increase when we do fret leveling, only microscopically. So now you can hear just slightly with having done that adjustment of both the bridge and the nut, you can hear that, maybe hear that some of the notes now are not quite as clean as they were before, and that's what we expect, because probably expect the action realistically to be set just above the point at which you start to hear. It's not exactly buzzing. Just slightly unclear notes. But it's good. It's pretty good condition and not a lot of work to do on this. Oh, it'll take as long as normal. So there's a lot of work to do on it, but we won't take off much material, which is good because it will help preserve more of the fret life. Now, what I'm going to do is since I'm still going to reuse these strings, because the fun about doing the fret leveling on the guitar, the way I'm doing it, is we're going to do it with all the strings on the guitar fully strung. But for ease, I'm just going to get these off so I can colour in the frets, because I'm going to need to see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to get my marker pen and go carefully over the very top of the fret, give it a nice black line, and this will show me when I start to fret level. I'll just pull these out of the way a little bit. When I start to fret level, I'll be able then very quickly to see where the sandpaper of the fret leveling tool is taking material away, and it'll tell me a number of things that will be really useful. I mean, the first one is it will alert me to whether I've got the correct shape or the correct curve in my tool, excuse the expression, matron. You know, if I find that it's only cutting the two extreme ends, then I've probably not matched the curve correctly, and so immediately I can stop and just recheck and make sure I've got that curve correctly. It will also help to highlight very quickly which are the actual high frets relative to the rest, because they will start cutting first, and it will also show me, probably more importantly, very quickly which are the low frets, and the low frets are the ones, bizarrely, that will cause you most problem, because simple reason that a low fret makes the frets around it high, and once you have a low fret, that's what dictates how it plays. Now I don't have any tuning things here, idiotically, but hey, I need it back up to pitch, so I'm going to have to get a note from the amp. Not bad. Okay, it's close enough. It's under tension. Okay, so the fun part is about to start. Now what do I need to do? Is there anything I need to do? Probably need to put some heating on because it's a little bit cold. Okay, so I'm going to get my fret leveling devices from the places in the lofty top shelf. Now I'm going to show you a little bit how this works, but I think for the sake of sanity I'm not going to go take you, make you watch the whole thing. And the principle is this: as you probably guessed, I'm going to level these frets with the guitar in playing setup. Now we've got the nut action the way I want it, we've got the playing action down here the way I want it, and I've got the relief in the neck the way I want it. And that, as you know, means I end up with a slightly curved neck. There's no two ways about it. The neck is slightly relieved and therefore curved under playing tension. The reason I like to fret level under playing tension is because there's not only curvature, which you could simulate on a jig, but under playing tension there's also compression apparently, and that makes, and I found it to be true, although I can't tell you exactly what happens, but it makes the frets behave slightly differently than just bending or flattening the neck under passive or pushing either ends of the neck. Just slightly different. It pulls, the strings are pulling it as well as bending it. So that's the shape it's going to be in when you play it, so why not level it? So we want relative levelness between all these frets. And to do that, it follows that we have to therefore bend our tool to match the curvature of the neck. Now if we bend the tool to match the curvature of the neck and it's precise, then we're making a relatively level set of frets. Okay? If you took the thing, flattened it down to perfectly flat, of course you might find that they're slightly different, but we don't play it flat, we play it strung, compressed and curved. So to level it curved means that there's a relative level between all of these and they perform as they should. So how do I do it? Well, it's by using a truss rod, and I can use there's a couple of different truss rods I can use. I don't want to do it with the radius block for the reasons I described, because I don't want to end up forcing I don't want to force a flat profile onto it, because it's curved. That's the first reason I wouldn't use a radius block. Second one is I don't want to force a fixed radius onto it, whereas actually as an older guitar it may have a more organic radius. So if I do it with a thin curved tool matching perfectly the curve in the neck, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it in strips, more or less, so I can respect the actual radius instead of forcing a fixed radius on it. So how do I mimic the curve of this neck in the tool I'm using? Now you can either use sort of one like this, which is quite a nice tool that's rigid. It's a U-channel truss rod from StewMac, but it's quite wide, so I'd probably end up doing this in about 3 or 4 stripes, if you like, constantly moving it so it doesn't kind of make a dead flat spot or anything. Or if you want to be more, I don't know, precise is the word, but more gentle, and I might do it on this one to show you because it's got some new sandpaper on it. You could use the thinner truss rod, and this is a standard one that came out of a Squire Strat that somebody tried to saw the neck off. So it's got a hacksaw blade slice almost through it. Anyway, the point being is, as a truss rod, it is a movable end piece on a rod which can kind of shorten or extend the length of the rod, but welded to the 2 different bits, or tacked or whatever, welded, spot welded, is a bar which can't shrink. So if you tighten it up, what happens is the bar has to deform by bending, and therefore that's how your truss rod works, but we can use it to our advantage. So how do we do it? Let's put our 3 little feet onto the neck. Alright, this is our start point, and I want them to be equidistant and cover as much of the neck as possible given the length of this tool that I've got in my hand. So I'm going between the strings, I'm just measuring the midpoints, if you like, so I can get an equidistant. I want this middle one to be as close to the middle as possible. Well, that's good, right, the way it is. They're all in the same strip, which is the kind of between the E and the B string. And what I do is I place my truss rod, first of all I touch the end down on the left hand side one, the way I'm looking at it, and then I bring the rod down and note where it hits. It's hitting the far right one and it's skipping clearly across the top of the middle one. Now that means the neck is like that, but the truss rod is like that. So all I have to do is put some bend into this truss rod. Right? It's very sensitive, this particular one. That one's a stiffer one. So now I put a tiny bit of bend in it and I touch it down, and it's still touching the far right one and not the middle one. Try it again. Now we're touching the middle one, and believe it or not, we're touching the middle one first. I can see it bend to press down second on the end one. So tiny bit of stepping back from that, and we're pretty much at this point touching two equally. Now I stop there exactly. Now that truss rod now is curved exactly the same as the neck profile, sorry, the curved, the relief profile if you like, at this part of the neck. It's going to be slightly different over here, so I'm not going to use the tool unadjusted all the way across. I'm going to check it at each level, each thing I use. Now to save me, I never do this normally, but save me messing about each time I replace these things, I'm just going to, on this side, I'm going to just put a piece of masking tape where I'm going to place the little feet, because I spend a bit of time trying to relocate the what's each time. So just putting that on, I just know where to place them to get them equidistant, so it saves me a little bit of time. So, sanity check. My little feet have given me the right shape for this one. I need to start leveling this. So to do it, I'm going to take off, really what I'm going to do is I want to level each string track at a time. So I'm going to take off the E string, and I'm just going to spread the string down here with a little plastic widget that just helps me spread the string apart. It could be anything, you know, you find something that works for you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this truss rod with its paper down on this this guitar neck, and I'm just going to allow it, under the force of pretty much gravity and nothing else, I'm going to let it go up and down on the pretty much the track of the E string. I don't want to spend too much time going on to the B, because I'm going to do it individually for each of these strings, but I'm going to save you the misery of watching me. So just a little bit of scratching straight away, and I can tell you what the results show me, and they're really good for knowing what's going on. So what's happening? Cutting the first fret, cutting a bit on the second, none, 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 cutting, 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 lots, 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 plenty, a little bit, less, less. So first diagnostic says it's not cutting either end or just in the middle, it's cutting here and here and here. So it's pretty balanced. It's what it's really doing is taking down the frets that are slightly higher. So I'm comfortable and confident that the curve of the fret leveling tool is accurate for this strip, and all I'm doing is pulling it as lightly backwards and forwards as I can across the track that the E string will take, and I'm going a little bit either side of it too. It doesn't have to be precise, but I'm just concentrating on that first little bit of the neck. I go to the edge too, so there's no sticky out bits, or I'm not ending up with a kind of flare at the end. Okay, and so once I've done that a little bit, what I'm also looking to do at this time is, this little green thing is actually annoying me, I don't need it there anymore, so I'm going to cut it off. What I'm looking for is to make sure that any of the tiny dents, the wear dents from years of playing, I'm going to just check and make sure that any of those are also being removed by this process. So I'm paying a bit of attention down here, saying, you know, can I see that little groove is now cleared out? I can see there's a couple of grooves here, and so far they are. This one here isn't, because the tool isn't touching that at all yet, because we're not down, if like we haven't come down to that level yet. But it's got hardly any dent there anyway, so it's not really a problem. But I can see that it's taking a fair bit of material off these higher frets as I can see them, and now I can stop at that point, because what I'm looking to do is get this to play as well as it can, given the action configuration that we've got. So what I really care about now is putting the string back in, and just checking it plays nearly all the way up. I mean, it's pretty good actually, but there's a tiny bit of zinging at the top end, which I just want to keep working on a little bit. I know from experience so far this means I've hardly taken any substantial material off the frets yet doing this, so it's still very minor, and 400 grit is very fine. You can wear the fret down pretty well with it, but you know, just lightly doing this, it's going to take you a while before you get down to you know, get down to the wood. But I'm just sort of taking a little bit of extra attention on these top frets. It's interesting that some people talk about, or I've heard people talk about this fall off thing, and people put, because of the stiffness of this part of the neck, people talk about deliberately creating some sort of drop off, more extreme fret leveling up here, so that you guarantee that this stiffness doesn't get in the way of the notes. I've not done that ever, so I've never actually concentrated on putting a specific fall off on a guitar. I just tended to leave this thing kind of take care of it in that this thing is describing the complete curve that this guitar needs to have to play neatly. Now if this part of the neck is still slightly higher, this tool here is going to cut that curve back into it, if you like. So I think, I could be wrong, but I think the fall away principle really does apply for those people who are doing flat neck leveling, if you get what I mean, passive flat neck. So if you're doing it this way, where you're looking to put a curve into the whole length of it using this curve tool, I have a feeling that it does away with the need for that. Okay, so I think this will be about right. Yep, I'm happy with that. And so I then go back to where we were and I choose my next track. Now those observant folks will notice that I'm measuring slightly to this side of the string, but it's as close as you can get without pushing the string out of the way, and which I could also do. But I'm just, it's convenient to do it right next to the string. It's a pretty close approximation, and the change across the amount it will change is going to be very small. Okay, so I'm just clunking this down, and I can feel that it's hitting the end more at the moment, and I need to just balance the amount of curve in. Now it's hitting the middle. No, it's about right actually. Okay, so that's my recalibration, and so I'm on the second groove now, and I'll just what am I going to do? I'm going to lift this string out of the way first of all, put it in the first slot, and at this end I'm going to push it out of the way physically, and then I'm just going to concentrate now on the B slot, and I'll save you from watching all of that by switching off for a time being, and I'll come back when this is done, and then we'll be into the next stage. Okay, so we've completed that part of it, and what we have is, you can see where it's cut. I mean, you may be able to see, sorry, it's not very good at close-ups. It's clearly visible to me where it's cut the metal and removed any tiny fractions of height that it needs to. And having done that now, this guitar is kind of ready now to take off the strings, give it all a good clean up, make sure everything is in order. I'm sure it is. It feels and plays pretty good. Yeah, take the strings off, clean everything up, and then mask off the neck and get ready to reprofile these frets, because just as I've mentioned a few times before, but it's always worth just revisiting. Once you've just imagine you have frets here, and one of them is really high. In fret leveling, what you do is you kind of take off the stuff that you don't need that's sticking up, and on the first two frets there you might be removing the sort of dents that you had before, that were the result of lots of wear. But on the other one, you can see we took off a really high piece there. But what you can see is you've got flat spots now on top of your frets, looking from the side, different sizes, and the more you took off, the bigger the flat spot. And that's crappy, because on a flat spot, if that's the bridge down here, then the intonation point kind of wanders forward to the front edge of the fret as opposed to being in the middle where it's supposed to be. So you can see on, for example, the more you take off, the further the intonation point's going to wander. It's not going to be instantly, well, it's not going to be massively noticeable, but it is technically a problem for your intonation. So what we're aiming to do is we want to keep the same height, but to reshape the frets within that height. As you can see, they're really crudely drawn with one hand holding the thing, and this one obviously more to kind of take off than the other. But we're going to end up with 3 frets reshaped to the same height, but you can see very little to take off there. But it will also bring the intonation point back up to the middle, which is where we want it. And the same with this one, intonation back to the crest of the nice curved shape. But you can see on this one that was really tall, there's a lot to remove, a lot of material to remove to get that back into shape. Now I think most of the frets on this guitar were kind of like that, so we'll have it'll be a very quick job to reprofile them. But we do that with a tool. I use a StewMac tool, which is a file that's basically concave file that goes over the top, and as you bring it down onto the surface, it'll cut away these shoulders first and eventually just bring it all back to a nice smooth surface. And we do the same for all of these. And you can see as soon as we get onto this one that's really flat, you can see that it's going to start going and cut all this stuff away until it's pretty much flat. And what we aim to do is leave a strip of black marker pen down the middle, which tells us the height is still the same. Nothing. If we leave the black marker pen down the middle, we can safely say that this part of the fret hasn't been touched by anything, and therefore it's the same relative level that it was when we started. So that's the sort of logic of this part of the process. I'm just going to plug you back in over here so you don't run out of batteries. Spin around, hold on a sec. Bang, crash. So yeah, that's what we're going to do next. But before anything else, I'm going to take these strings off and dispose of them because I don't really want them for anything else. I've got quite a few sets of spare strings. Always useful to keep because you can always put them on a guitar with no strings and then do that setup process using the crappy old strings as a sort of sacrificial set. Save you wasting a good pair or trying to do the process with a decent pair and stressing them out so that when you give it to the customer or you start playing it, the strings are already sort of half worn out, which we don't want. So once we've got the strings off, I'll polish up or clean up the whole guitar with some naphtha, get all the dust off it, and once that's done, I'll mask off the neck and re-mark up the frets ready for the next part of it. Always worth taking your time, as I do. If you watch any of my other videos, you'll see how some videos you'll see me doing the whole thing, and it takes quite a while to mask off the frets completely because you've got to cut lots of different thicknesses of fret wire to do it. Not fret wire, masking tape is the word, because the frets are all different sizes. But it's really worth the effort because it's going to protect your fingerboard throughout the process. And it's not really, the process I'm doing with the tools don't really damage the fretboard. It's the sanding that comes up afterwards to recondition the frets or bring them back up to a playing shine that is the one that's likely to do your fingerboard or your wood some damage. Okay, so right now I can just take off the bridge. I don't need to worry too much about where, I'll give that a clean as well, but I don't really need to worry too much about where these component parts are because I'm going to set them back up with the action I want. And it'll be 1.5 or 1.3, something like that. But it'll be a mixture of what the freshly shined up neck frets like and what they don't like. And also with this I can use the two-handed removal method if I can to take off these buttons, but I can't, so I might need to use the cloth method. And if I can't use the cloth method, somebody suggested the dental floss method, which I haven't got, but I use the little wiry teeth things. So this is not going to play ball with me. I'd like to get these off. I can do some of them, mainly because I just want to check they're secure, and also clean underneath them, or right up to the edge, because very often, there you go, I can get that one underneath. Very often they, off you come, often the grime builds up around them where you can't quite get close enough with a regular cloth, so it's quite nice to take them out of the way, because you can give everything under there a good clean, and then when you put the knobs back on, they're sitting on a clean spot. So my two-handed technique usually works, and it does work if I believe in it totally. Obviously my faith is not strong. Yeah, it usually works, as you can see. If I can get this piece of cloth under here, which I don't think I can, it's really playing hard to get with this one. Oh yeah, it's under. Hooray! Thank Gould for that. Then I just pull it up and get a direct, as much of an upward pull as I can, which has now slipped out. Yeah, I'm obviously using the wrong kind of knurled edged cloth, which is pretty annoying. So get it as far under there as you can get, and then form a loop and pull it up. Oh, it's not playing games, this one. Come on. I think it's probably time I got a different piece of cloth, or maybe a piece of leather or something would do better. But anyway, the principle is quite good, and it does work once you get your, if you can get your cloth under there all the way. But this is sort of not playing. No, it's not going under far enough. So as a result, it's quite. It's failing to grip it. Do I have another piece of cloth that will just do this job without too much kerfuffle? Probably. Might find that it works with one of these. For some reason that isn't slipping all the way under. I don't know why. It's maybe this part of it's just blocking it off. Anyway, you can get, as Dan in Canada said, he was very kindly going to find me or send me a StewMac knob remover. Blimey, I don't know if somebody's glued this on, but there you go, finally it's off. That was very, very stiff. Okay, yes, Dan was going to send me one, and I know they have them. The only reason they're kind of expensive for me is because they're StewMac's postage is very, very dear for us British people. I don't mind the $8 or so for the tool, but it's the $40 that you end up having to pay for postage sometimes, and then by the time your British customs get hold of it and stick their customs charges on, it can be extremely expensive. So I tend to kind of hold off unless I actually have to, although I really like their stuff. So okay, so just first off, while I've got this stuff off, I'm just going to, I'm basically just wiping off all the dust at this point in time, taking off the bits of masking tape I had on there originally. The nice thing about doing the levelling and the action the way we've done it is from this point onwards, I can just concentrate on cleaning all the different parts of the guitar and so on, and doing whatever else I need to do to it. And then once I put it all back together again with its 10 gauge strings back on it, it's going to pull itself into the same configuration it was when we did the fret leveling, and as a result it'll sort of drop immediately back in to that perfect sort of action setup that we got. And that's the nice thing about doing it this way. Once we've taken care of the frets, really the hard stuff is done, and we're just on the kind of clean up, followed by intonation and final tweaks part of it. So what I'm just doing now, you can't see very well, I'm just using naphtha to clean off any residual finger gunk. It's also, as it happens, taking off the first set of black permanent marker that we used, which is fine, and I'll put some more on for the next part of the process, but I'll do it once we've covered the guitar neck with masking tape. Looking at this is amongst a mixture of marker pen and sort of grease coming out there. This does dry out the fingerboard a little bit because it's a safe solvent, so it does pull out some of the grease that's built up over the years. But we'll put some oil back onto that neck before we finish. Now, this is the headstock is in pretty good shape, so I'm just going to give it a sort of dust over, really. I'm not going to even take the tuners off here because there's nothing that needs fixing or finishing off on that. I will just check them as I go through to make sure they're tightly attached. I don't want to take off or do anything to this jack plate because it has some splits developing in it, which I don't want to make worse by kind of de-handling it, really. So this stuff is petroleum ether, and it's slightly different from the naphtha that I first had, and it's the nearest thing to naphtha, and it's inert and pretty, or whatever the word is, but it's pretty safe. It's completely safe for lacquer. But it is slightly different in that it evaporates much more like alcohol does. It has more evaporative quality than the original naphtha that I got, which I kind of preferred working with because this stuff makes my hands go freezing because of that evaporation that goes on. Okay, so that's a 1/over clean. What I haven't done, which I always like to do, I'll just put this off to one side. I'm going to take a break shortly, but while I'm at it, I've thought about it, I like to get my wee toothbrushy and this grubby old tunematic bridge and just give myself a cap of this stuff, and it's evaporating like crazy anyway, so it won't last very long, or more than a few goes with this. But while I'm at it, a toothbrush over these nice little chromy bits here will really dislodge some of the built up years of grime, and it's evaporating all over my hands as I'm doing this, so as I say, it won't stick around long, but it will make this part look kind of brand spanking new compared to what it was before. That's a nice simple little, well, you can see that, but it's very shiny, and you can get into the hard to reach bits if you like. Spend as much time as you like, but it just does bring it back to a fresh lease of life. I mean, that's pretty nice and new. What I'll also do with this, more than likely, is I will probably end up putting some rubber fillers in there to stop it doing any rattling, because I can't stand the rattle those things tunematic bridges do. While I'm at it, I'll also just give the stop bar a quick wipe over while we've still got loads of solvent on here, and that will just take off any dust and restore the shine, ready for replacement shortly. Okay, so that's the clean up of those parts. So the next part of this, and again I'll just get started but then I'll stop and move on, or I'll come back when it's miraculously done. The next part of this will be to cover the whole neck in masking tape. I use low tack masking tape. My warning to you is don't trust anything online that says low tack, because it probably isn't. It's just whatever people think they can say to sell the product. I get this from the market in the town where I live, and it is low tack. It needs to be low tack for a couple of reasons. If you've got old lacquer, normal masking tape can pull flaking lacquer off if it's weak. Off vintage guitars, for example. Oh, and even if it's good, kind of strong, thick lacquer that isn't likely to pull off, non-low tack masking tape can be really difficult to remove. It just leaves its glue behind, and you can find yourself spending as much time with your solvent again trying to lift all the residual glue from just protecting your neck. So low tack pretty much is the way to go, and just make sure it is low tack. Now you can see I'm stopping there because I've done as much of that as I can do with the masking tape at the size that I've got it, and obviously I'm going to need to use my cutting board here to slice up some new pieces, and I'm just going to get rid of the remnants of the previous job, and there we go. So Gary, this is a process that all my guitars undergo, and you can see it's pretty long-winded. There's no quick way, even though I've cut off some of the detail here to save a bit of time. It's still a drawn-out process, but it's what I like to do to make sure that it plays as well as it can. And even with your guitar, which technically was in many ways in quite good playing order, just to do that little kind of final detailing, or that little mild level of fret leveling to get that extra bit of precision out of it. It takes the same amount of time pretty much as doing a really mega fret leveling that takes loads of metal off. So now what I'm doing is I'm doing my low-tech blade for the shed. You might say, why don't you buy one of those special craft knife things? I don't know why I don't, but I don't like them. I don't like the very big bulky plastic thing. I'd much rather be using a tape covered blade, and then I can snap off when I want and so on. Anyway, so what I do with this is, sorry about the noise, is I give myself some 4 full-length strips on this board, and then I cut them into halves and thirds, 2 in half long ways and 2 in thirds long ways, and that gives me the different gauges to fit into those closer together frets as I get nearer the top of the guitar. And just experience has shown me that will give me the full set that I need to do one conventional guitar. So cut it square at the ends because I'm a bit on the OCD side apparently, some say. I like square edges and tiny details to be right. Kind of good when you're doing things for people on their guitars, but it can be a pain for anyone you live with. Right. So, as I say, I've got this nice long ruler. First one's going to be in thirds, and again, I only have to do it by eye. It doesn't have to be mathematically precise, but as long as I've got different gauges of thickness that I can use. Second one in thirds as well, and then into halves. So yeah, my eldest son, aged 23, is in Australia. It's just such an amazing thing when you've been a parent for a long time, and you see people out in the street with their kids doing exactly what I did, which is sort of hurrying them along as if they wished the day would hurry up and end and they could, I don't know, get home and drink some red wine or whatever is their thing. And it's that classic thing that you can't know until you know it, that they're going to grow up and suddenly, before you know it, they're independent and doing their own thing. And we always look back, everyone who's ever had children looks back and goes, why did I wish the time away? Why wasn't I able to enjoy it more when it happened? And I think it's the thing we all have to learn. And if we're lucky, some of you don't go through that. Most of the people I know have at some point caught themselves kind of wishing the time away, only to find that suddenly they're grown up and you can't get it back. But it's a wonderful thing to know your kids are exploring and in some far-flung part of the earth. But I don't know about you, I'm sure a lot of you have also got kids who've gone away, but I find it really slightly less romantic these days that as soon as they arrive at the airport you're getting a Facebook message saying, yeah, we landed, and here's the airport and here's the customs queue, and it's the magic of, or the mystery of that being on the other side of the world and out of reach for months on end. It's until you get an airmail letter or something exotic like that. It's sort of gone really in this day and age with our Facebook stuff. But then it's kind of nice to to know, but it stops you kind of missing them as well, I suppose. And I'm not saying I'd rather miss him than to be hearing what he's up to. It's just a very different world. When I used to go away, it was you only had letters to write, or you could only write letters. You had airmail, that thin blue paper, and you'd save up all your heartfelt, emotional outpourings for this little kind of funny thin blue thing that you constructed into a single envelope and then sent, with par avion written on the front, in case all pilots were French. I never quite understood that. Airmail, par avion. Only the British and the French ruled the air, because of course they did after the war. Anyway, so look, I've bored you with this. I'm going to stop. Am I going to stop? I'll be done in a minute, but I'm just going to mask off, and I'll probably mask a bit of the body off as well, just to protect it. So see you in a minute. And it's still windy out there. Right, next bit. This is where we get to reshape the frets, and I'm going to use the medium fret size side of this thing, and it's a concave file with diamond coating. Basically, I run down the file, a fret, run down the fret, and just only work the file as far as I need to go to leave a thin, tiny thin layer of marker pen down the middle, and stop at that point. And then I know that I've done as much as I can to reshape the fret and have stopped without taking any further material off it. Now what this is showing me up is that there are some dents, tiny dents in the fret, which the levelling hasn't removed, but they're very gentle and soft, so that a bit of sanding as we go will take them out. So they're very, very mild. There's hardly any work I need to do on these frets to round them off, because we've filed so little, basically. A bit more on this first one. And so I'm just going to whiz along to these top ones, which probably will have a bit more work needed. There we go. I'm wearing my Bluetooth headphone thing. Hopefully it's not going to interfere with the recording. I'm waiting for a call, so I need to be kind of ready to grab it and switch off the recording if and when. May not be today, but whenever it comes. Right, so these are a little bit harder work because there was more material taken off, so they're a little bit flatter. Again, you can follow it quite, you won't be able to see this, but I can see the thin black strip down the middle getting thinner as I round off the sort of excess material off the shoulder or the flat part. And then before you know it, you're down to where you need to be. And you'll see that I've also protected off the fingerboard for that reason, amongst others, because sometimes you slip and clunk the finish. But also mainly protect it from the sandpaper that I will use shortly to bring these frets back to a nice polish. So these are very straightforward. There's hardly any reshaping needed on these. There we go. It's done. Okay, so the next bit is a bit time consuming, and I will save you for sure from having to listen and watch all of that, but I'm going to take some sandpaper and use that to smooth out all of this, all of these frets, whilst retaining the relative heights of each of them to each other, so we don't want to undo that good work. So I'm just cutting out 4 bits of this 600 grit paper, which will be my start point. over there, and then I'm going to get me, if I can find some to hand, get me some 1200, and I'll use 4 bits of this, or 2 bits of this, and 2 pieces of the 1500, and then I'll move on to micromesh series, and that will then end up with a bit of water-sole polish right at the end, the last stage. So that we are, oh, it's 12 again. Where's the 15 when you need it? Not to hand, obviously. 6s, that's obviously 6, and there's the 15. No, it's 12 again. Oh, okay. I think it's time to take this out of the packet now, because this isn't, keeping it in the packet just isn't working. I'm losing track of what I've got. This is the only way I'm going to see it. So 600, 12, 15. Thank you. Right in the middle. Kind of hard stuck the handle because it curls up and it's really annoying. So I don't want 1200. I've got that. Sorry about this. This is the fiddly boring bit. Anyway, so the purpose of this is to run down through these different grades of paper until we get finer and finer, or closer to a polish, and then end up with the micromesh sequence, which is a very fine thing that runs from 1500 through to 12,000, which is very, very fine. It's like a polishing cloth, really. And then once we've done that, we can go onto the onto the last bit, which will be the polish, the autosole or something like that to shine up frets, the last bit. So I don't know if you can see that very well, but we've got 600, 1200, 1500 micromesh, and lastly but not leastly, we will do a Dremel run with some autosole right at the end of all of that. And by the time we've done that, that will be one stinking mess on here, and we'll need to clean it off again afterwards, but it's fine to make it messy up to that point, because we will be able to clean it nicely. So I am going to save you from watching this. Suffice to say, it'll take about half an hour to do this part. So again, Gary, you can see how much time all of this takes. It's really slow to get it right. So I'm going to begin by using my fingers on this. I like to do the first couple with fingers because I can pay attention to specific little dents, and once I've got those cleaned out, I will then go to using a shaped block for the rest of it. Okay, so anyway, like I said, I'll save you the suffering of watching all of that. It'll be noisy, it'll be dirty, and I'll come back at the end when I've done it all, and you'll see the filth all over the fingerboard, and then you'll be able to see me take that tape off, and we'll be ready for the fun part. See you in a minute. Having saved you all that misery, now we have the neck done, frets polished, shined up with autosole, and everything looking nice and shiny. And I'm just checking or seeing what the issue here is with this strap pin. I'm hoping it'll just go in nicely and stay where it belongs. Yep, that's good. Didn't want to find any major issues there. And the same with this one. It's got a bit of movement on it, so I just want to make sure it sits in. Yep, all is good. So I'm ready to replace the strings and I'll put everything back on. So I'm just going to also give these a quick wipe off, make sure they're as clean as they can be to go back on. And like I said, sorry, let me put a bit close. This is a matter of putting the hardware on, putting the strings on, and then we'll reset the level with the action to the one we had before, and try it out and make sure it's playing nicely like that. Now before I put the strings on, I will also get me some oil, because I want to give the fingerboard a little dose of oil, and I should have a cloth out here. cloths flying about. Yeah, we'll give that a quick rehydrate with oil. It's pretty nice condition, it's just at the nut end it's a little bit dehydrated, but I'll just put a bit on each fret and then give it a wipe over to get rid of the excess. I don't want it picking up gunge for the sake of it. And of course the fingerboard will always darken again with use anyway. It's just sort of post clean. It's nice to have a bit of the oil sort of back in it. But again, taking off the excess, I don't want it shining particularly, I just want it a little bit rejuvenated, shall we say. Okay. So, fingerboard done. You can go the stop pieces. There's tons of argument about how high the stop bar should sit, and it's one of those guitar topics that if you're asked the question, then be prepared to sort of stand back and watch the nuclear war unfold. It seems like every expert has an opinion on that, and the war will rage for quite some time. And, you know, you'll be made to feel stupid if you have a different opinion, but hey, that's the nature of guitar theory. So what's my view on it? Well, that's a sticky one, that is. I think you don't want it flat. If it's flat, then you aren't putting a downward pressure on the bridge, which is partly what keeps the strings nicely under tension, and therefore makes a solid connection between the string and the bridge saddle, which is what you want. So it needs to be, you know, 45 degrees, something like that. If you aim for 45 degrees, I don't think you can go wrong. Of course, other people may decide that they think it should be some other microscopically precise value that you can, I say, you can argue about all day long, but hey. Okay, so I'm getting a nice set of 10s to go on here, and I can actually save fiddling. I can just put them all through in one go to begin with, and then we'll attach them one by one. So the process now, as I said before, it's because we did the precision leveling work first. This really should be as simple as getting the strings on and getting it all back up to the correct action, which is easy to set, and then the correct tension, which is to tune it up and get rid of all the stretch in the strings so it stays in tune. And then once we've done that, we'll just check and recheck the action so it's where we want it, make sure all the notes play, and then once we've done that, we'll make sure the intonation's correct, which means adjusting the individual saddles. And I'm hoping that on this guitar, unlike many of the vintages that I've come across, hoping that on this guitar setting the intonation will be simple, and that I won't have to remove the bridge and mess around with the saddles, which I've had to do on far too many of the vintages for my liking. So while I'm at it, I'm quite happy with the neck relief, so I'm going to put the truss rod cover back on. Sorry, it's a bit out of shot at the moment. Just a fiddly little part of it there, and then I'll get on with stringing these. Les Paul Standard. Go through quite a lot of masking tape and sandpaper doing fret levelings. Okay, so I'm going to just drag this forward. Sorry, clang. So you can see get my loose string, and I'm going to go through the tuner in a straight line. Make sure it's through the stop bar and everything's in order, in line down that end, so there's nothing caught. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold it under tension and just pull it back 1 fret's worth. Right, this is the way I like to do it anyway. And then I'm going to start winding it on, holding that in position, and I want this free bit to go underneath the held string. So the first time the held string goes over the top of the free bit. As it comes around this time, I'm going to crank the free bit upwards and direct the held part of the string underneath the free bit for this time round. And it's on, and the only thing that it's now is the action's still too low, so it's hitting the frets at the moment, but that's fine. Now I can cut this straight off because I'm not going to be doing anything else with it. It's either on or it isn't, and then I go to the next one. Now obviously I'm going to need to pull the action up to clear the frets, but that's the next bit of it. So same again with this one, just make sure it's lined up, grab the string, pull it back a fret, and then hold it still as it winds on, holding it up so that the free one, the loose one, goes under, comes back round. As it's halfway round, yank it up and make sure the taut held string goes underneath this time. And you'll have them all looking the same, and there'll be a kind of self-locking from doing that. That's what's quite cool about it. Lots of other ways you can lock it, everybody has their own way, but that's the way I use, and it's quite simple. Again, make sure it's on its saddle nicely, pull it back, and on we go. And it's easy to do, and it just only gets a little bit difficult when you have to do it in reverse on the other side of the headstock, change hands, and it feels a bit clumsy, but we'll get there. This is always the fun bit, the lower 3 strings. Also what I'm going to do before I tighten this up is I'm going to go across and put a bit of graphite in each of these slots as well, so that we've given the slots a little bit of lubrication, as well as, or help it not stick. Again, so onto its saddle, pull it back a fret. Now this time I'm going to hold it at the neck as I start the process of winding, and that will just hopefully hold it enough for me to then pull it. Again, I'm keeping it under tension all the time, so it goes over the loose string to begin with, and as the loose string comes round I crank it up, change my grip on the held string, and just sort of direct it under tension so it goes below the loose string. And the secret of doing this is keeping your strings under kind of tension, and you have to develop a bit of a kind of finger gymnastics to do it. If you let go of it, what happens is you often get a sudden rapid uncoiling and everything comes spinning off, and that's kind of the only problem of doing that, is you've stressed the string then, and it's kind of a little bit weakened when you try and kind of wind it round again. So if you can get it in that one movement, the smoother the better. Again, pull back a fret, hold it down, wind it on, and that's going to go over when it should go under. So again, keeping it always under tension. This goes up, and then I'm going under it. And we're nearly there. And the last one. If you're using a string winder, it's always a good idea to put all the pegs on the tuners to upright position, otherwise you'll bang your string winder into them, believe it or not. It can be really a pain. So pull this up over the top, send it round, keep it under tension. As that one comes round, lift it up, keeping it under tension, pressing the held string, dropped it, pressing the held string below the loose one, and then letting it take up the slack. still under enough tension to stop it uncoiling. Okay, so there's a few things to do at this point here. First one will be, let's put in the graphite. I have some kicking around here in a pot. So I'll just pull off these bottom 3 strings first and just chuck it in. You can use a soft pencil if you haven't got loose graphite. Same principle, it's just a bit of lubricant. It makes a bit of a mess to begin with. But once you drop it in, you can blow away the excess quite easily. Now once we've got this in place, then the next thing we want to do is, while the strings are really loose, just physically do some work to take all the slack out of the strings. This is a really important part of the process that in our hurry often to get playing, it's very easy to forget because people just want to get going and play. And the problem with this is if you don't do the taking the slack out now, you'll pay for it later when you come to play, because you'll spend a long time tuning and retuning, because it's amazing how long the guitar will store the inherent slack in the strings. So if we physically get rid of it now, the payoff will be you can start playing almost immediately, and you won't have any problem. So just before I do that, I'm going to raise up this bridge to the height I want it, because I'd like to have the strings ringing out at this point, because I'm going to want to tune it up in a minute. So my little device, and the light isn't very good for this, I'm looking at the wrong angle, so I'm going to counterclockwise turn this to raise the action, and it's quite stiff. And this end too. It seems to need quite a lot of lifting off the deck to get this the right height, but let's just start and have a look. Okay, so we've got one and a tiny bit, and we're counterclockwise to raise it up, clockwise to pull it back in. It's 1.5, and it's about 1.52. Let's stop there for a minute and we'll fine tune it in a sec. So thing here is you want to get rid of all the stretch, so grab each string and start and do a pushing motion, thumb and forefinger, and you're just literally kind of holding it so you're not putting it under too much pressure over the pivot points or the angled points where it's going to be under stress. We just want to squeeze out with our thumb and forefingers, squeeze out as much of the inherent stretch as we can, and then in a moment we'll then tune it for the first go, and then we'll do this stretching again, and you'll see how much kind of built-in stretch there is, because it will detune. So as we do this, once we've done these strings this way, you want to go back and just do the bits either side of the bridge and the nut, because believe it or not, they store a fair bit of stretch as well. So it's worth giving them a little gentle tweak, remembering that's going to put the string under some stretch over the nut part, but you know, let's see if we can take out a bit of the stretch out of him. No harm in that. It'll just make your tuning just that little bit more stable if you do. Oh, that's a bit crunchy. Is that in properly? Yeah. Okay, now this time I'm going to get a note. I might as well bring this up because we'll need this soon. Get a note for the amp tuning. Right, and tune all up to this. all in tune, and then we'll do the stretching game again. This time be very conscious of the sharp places that the string's going over, so don't put it under too much pressure around any of those points, the bridge or the nut. We just want to get as much stretch out of it as we can. If you do this in total 4 times, you will literally be able to play almost straight away without this, hardly any detuning happening after that. Maybe 3 times plus some really big string bends and you're ready to go. Some string bends on every string, I should say, and that will pretty much take out all the slack. You do run the risk of breaking a string on this thing, but can't be helped. If you hear the detune there, okay, so we could start playing it now. So I'm going to just get my glasses on, and what I want to do now is just set the thing exactly as we had it in the fret leveling part. So I'm going to go to 1.8 if I can. That's 1.5, and it's quite low, this one. That's about right, actually. Okay, we'll work off that, and again, just for old friends' sake, we'll just stretch it one more time. You know, basically, when you take the time to do this, you're just saving yourself the time of annoying your bandmates and so on when you have to stand there constantly retuning in the first few songs you play. So just take a time at home and do this and get a shot of all that slack, because there'll be loads of it in there. Some of it will be wrapped around the post, and that will take a little bit of time to come out. You might want to stretch the strings a little bit upwards as well as this way, but hardly any detuning there, so we're close now. Nice. So we're almost there. A little bit of intonation left to do. So to do that, I will probably want to get a strap. I'm going to take this thing off because it's annoying me. I think, my call isn't coming in today, which is kind of good, really. Let's get a strap on this. And to intonate, we'll need a flat bladed screwdriver, which we've got there. I'm not a fan of this tunematic bridge design, the tunematic bridge design, because I find that it's hard to access anything, and yeah, it's hard to access the individual screws, and the adjustments don't seem to take place very quickly. They're very hard to get. It seems to be much more straightforward on the Stratocaster style bridge, but hey. Okay, so we are fully kitted up. bit of stretch out of it, long ways, tall ways, but not much. And the next thing I'm going to need to go and get is my tuner app on my phone over there, which means I'm going to, yeah, it's almost not detuning now, it's pretty good. I'm just going to get the app and I'll switch off the phone so it doesn't interfere with the recording. 1604, switch it off, beep, 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 and all that. Let's bring up the app. So I'm using iStrobo Soft, which is it's made by Peterson, and it works as a kind of stroboscopic tuner, which is pretty useful. Sometimes I'm not totally happy with the way it works. Sometimes on Les Pauls I've struggled a little bit. Doesn't seem to pick it up quite well enough. So let's try with this. So the idea of the intonation is that each string has to be tuned lengthwise. We have to set each string to the right length for this neck. So the neck is fixed. You can't really change the position of the frets. So all the frets in the neck they get closer together out of mathematical fixed preset formula out of the factory, and that formula is based on a scale length of 24.5 inches, I think it is. I can't remember on Gibson stuff, but anyway, it's a fixed scale length that you feed into that formula, which then dictates how close together these get and at what rate. And that's great, and it gives you a basic position for the bridge, but each string varies slightly from each other string because of the construction of the string and the thickness. And what you find is that you have to achieve perfect intonation, which means to make sure that every string stays in tune on every note as played up through the whole neck of the guitar. You have to shorten or lengthen each string individually to get a perfect length for this neck, and they're never all the same length. So first thing first, if you ever see a bridge either on a Strat or a Les Paul copy or a Les Paul with all the bridge saddles in exactly the same level position, it's usually not been intonated. Not always. There are occasions I've seen it, or I've done it where they've lined up bizarrely. For the best of my abilities, I cannot explain why, but maybe to the characteristics of the strings I was using or something, but it usually goes in 2 sets of 3, and they step backwards away from the E, so it goes shorter, next longest, longest, slightly shorter than that one, next longest, 2 groups of 3. But luckily we don't have to get a ruler out and measure the exact distance. What we can do is to use the tuner function, and it's a really good way of doing it. So first of all, we ping each string on the 12th fret harmonic and tune it to that. There you go, there's an E on the harmonic. If this string is currently the correct exact length for this neck, then what will happen is the fretted note on that 12th fret will be the same as the harmonic. It's close. In fact, it's very close. I predict that these will all be in, just because it's a well kept guitar. Slightly sharp. Probably guessed part of this is slightly subjective. That is, I can, with a bit of effort, I can make my fretted note on the 12th change. So nice and B-ish. Oh look, it's very sharp. It's almost flat. Dead on. Sharp. Very sharp. Ow. So you can see that finger pressure will change this. So you're kind of going on an average based on the way you play, and it isn't the same for everyone. So when I'm doing this for someone else, I'm going on an average. I'm not squeezing too hard or too soft. I'm trying to get a mid pressure. To be honest, it's going to be close enough by doing that that the tiny variations aren't going to make a difference. So microscopically sharp. Now if the note is sharp, what it means, I'll probably get rid of that sharp there, what it means is that the string is too short, so I'd want to take the saddle backwards to lengthen the string slightly. So let's start with the A and go through that properly. Very close. Even at my lightest touch, that is just a smidgen sharp. Now that means I've got to lengthen the string, which means in this world, I never remember which way round it is. I think it's counterclockwise. Let's see if I'm right. Probably wrong. Yeah, counterclockwise sends the saddle slightly away from me. Also detunes the string slightly, or sharpens it. Good, that's on. That's too sharp. So I'm going to go again counterclockwise to me and push this saddle back a fraction of a millimetre or so. Sorry about the noise. It's really annoying. Still slightly sharp. So again on the G I'm going to go counterclockwise, pushing that saddle back a fraction. And sometimes with these things you have to press things and make sure they're gone, moved where they should do. Still slightly sharp, and in a minute we're going to run out of, any second now we're going to run out of backwards movement, and I'd say that's about now. So if I have to go any further than this, I'm going to run out, and the problem is, if I have to go any further back on the other three, I'm not going to get there. That's pretty good. Good. Slightly flat, so that means it's too long, which means if I go clockwise the A saddle will come towards me a little bit, and that should raise that note. Flat, so I want to go clockwise and bring it towards me. Come on. Getting there, closer. Let me try this D again. Bring that one forward too, so clockwise on the D, clockwise a bit more on the A. Come on D. Yep. Forward you come, clockwise. It can feel so stiff on these tunematic bridges, you can really be scared to turn those screws. action sharp. Okay, well, it's an interesting pattern. It's not quite what I'd expect, but that's a nice chord. Come on, play me in D. So give it a few big bends. A few big bends, and then see where we are tuning wise. Not far. I like it. It's very nice. That yeah, that comes in on a par, sort of up there with Rally. Prefer this to the vintages, I've got to say. Technically, it doesn't require any less work. I mean, that's the thing to remember. It had uneven frets. We've done the couple of hours of hard work to get them levelled and then intonated correctly. But this action and this, the clarity of these notes, are better than most of the V100s I've worked on. Yeah. There you go, Gary. You's done, sir. And thanks for sticking it out. Those of you who've spent the time and gone through it all. We have a very nice Epiphone Les Paul Standard. Really interesting, as I said, for me to have a go at this one because it's the first one I've worked on, and with the Seymour Duncans, beautiful things. I like the balance of the tone. I don't want to move the pickups anywhere just a tiny bit closer on the bridge pickup than the neck one, but it feels right to me the way it's set up. You can play it to your own ear or change it around to your own ear, just raising and lowering them. I like it the way it is, and that's the way it came to me, so I'm not going to go chasing after some notional ideal thing. Yeah, lovely. But you know, the thing here is that Gary got probably a good deal on this, that you know, with the Seymour Duncans he paid somewhere in the mid 200s, I think, something like that, or high 200s. With a pair of Seymour Duncans in it, that's probably not a bad price for this. But I'm interested that these seem to hold their value on second hand, or the second hand value is higher than the average vintage V100, I have to say, and I'm probably, on this basis of just this one, I could probably see why. It's not bad at all. It's a confidence inspiring little Les Paul copy, so I wouldn't mind having this at all. It feels, you know, up there with my GL 300, and that's saying quite something. And Malcolm, I don't know if you were watching this one, but Malcolm, who's another good friend of mine and a rally addict like me, he'll agree that, you know, if something's as good as his rally, then it's got to be pretty good and worth playing on. So there you go, Epiphone Les Paul Standard. Thanks for sticking it out. I'll see you anon when I'll be getting stuck into this little old beauty, a plywood Columbus SG, but I think it's just so 1970s. I love it, and it's going to be a longer-ish term project, but I'll be the next one up on the bench. So nice spending time with you today. See you soon, and take care of yourselves.